Hey friends, we have done it. We have hit 300,000 subscribers, and it's just amazing. Thank you all so much. This means a lot to me to have so many of you care and be interested in my little YouTube channel. So thank you all very much. And again, to give back, last video I asked you guys, send me any question you want, and I'm going to just go through the video here and read as many questions as I can. So wow, there are already almost 500 questions here, and I posted this video yesterday, so really thank you guys for sending so many questions. I'm going to try to just go through and get through as many of them as I can, but fear not, if you're posting questions after I made this video, or maybe if I don't get to your question right now, I'll try to write you a reply. Stella writes, how did you come to play the guitar? This is a bit embarrassing, but it is true. I was 11 and my mom turned back in the car and she said to my brother and I, hey, I have a friend who's a really good guitarist in town. Do you guys want to take guitar lessons? And I was forming the word no, and my brother goes, yeah. And so I said, yeah. So we signed up for guitar lessons, and at 11, he and I started taking guitar lessons and with this cool teacher who taught out of a trailer near a lake. And so that was that. What was the worst mistake or instrument malfunction that has ever happened to you during a live performance? Actually, the first thing that comes to mind is I was playing a gig in a church, and I had my music on my stand, which I didn't know by memory, and so I was playing my music, and I'm in the middle of my piece, and this woman that was in the choir decided she was a little too hot, and there was these giant fans, and so she decides to turn one on in the middle of my performance. And like the church, you could hear a pin drop in there, very echoey church, and she turns this fan on, and she just blows my music off my stand, and I couldn't keep playing because the music was too hard, and I just had to stop and then go pick up my music and bring it back, and I just looked at her like, what the hell? So that wasn't fun. Zoe writes, what's your favorite scale to noodle around with? I gotta say, I always come back to the Aeolian mode, the minor mode. It always sounds good, and it always resonates with me. The major scale doesn't do as much for me emotionally. I remember in high school, I was particularly obsessed with harmonic minor. I thought that sound was so interesting. But I would say the timeless standard for me is good old natural minor. Bonus Disc asks, what's something you believe about guitar playing that most guitarists might think is crazy? Well, actually, I did a video about this recently. I would say that most classical guitarists think, in general, that playing without nails on very low tension gut strings is a bit crazy. It definitely goes against the mainstream. But historically it's what they did, and it's not really trendy right now, but maybe that's going to change. Gunnar writes, have you heard the joke or rumor that you are an immortal vampire? What are your thoughts on that? No comment. Ryan writes, what made you transition from electric guitar to classical guitar? Or have you always played classical guitar? You inspired me to pick up classical guitar again, thank you. I'm so happy to hear that, Ryan, that's amazing. Well, I actually transitioned to classical guitar kind of arbitrarily. I had to go to college. Well, I was going to college. No one forced me to go. I was going to college to major in sound recording, actually. I had this idea that I'd play in my rock band, and then I'd have a day job working in a recording studio, and I thought it'd be a good idea, to get a degree in sound recording. But when I got there, they were like, well, you need an instrument, and you have to pick something. So I was like, oh, I play electric guitar. And they said, well, you have to pick jazz or classical. And I knew nothing about jazz, but I could sort of fake some, Spanish-like finger-picking strumming stuff on a nylon string. And so I got a teacher, and I learned some repertoire from guitar tabs, and I auditioned with 30 minutes of memorized music from guitar tab. And I think I equally impressed and offended the teacher. But he let me in, and eventually he was so good that he convinced me to double major in both. And eventually I said, you know what, I love classical guitar, and I dropped the sound recording, and then the rest is history. Next, we have a question from one of my patrons on Patreon, which, by the way, if you'd like to support this channel, you can do it very easily by liking this video and subscribing or leaving a comment. That would help greatly. And if you want to go a step beyond and help me actually make more videos, you can do that by joining my Patreon. And there are a number of rewards. You can get CDs, behind the scenes content, all that kind of stuff, my musical arrangements. So check that out if you want to help. So one of those patrons, Sally, hey Sally, writes, how does one know when or how often to change the strings on a guitar? Well, there are two ways, I would say. First, your eyes. So if you look at a nylon string guitar, you have 6 strings. The 3 that are closest to the ceiling are wound with metal, right? And then you have 3 which are another material, nylon or historically gut, like I have on here. For the metal strings, if you look especially around the first few frets where you play the most, those over time, your finger oils and dirt and things get inside those metal windings, and they sort of tarnish the string. And so if the metal, which is sort of like a silver-looking metal, if the metal gets tarnished, it turns brown, rusty. Sometimes I've even had some students bring in a guitar that with green strings on there from not being changed for years and years. So if they look really old and rusty, time to change them. But also you can use your ears. So if you're playing your guitar and the guitar just sounds a bit dead, it's not resonating, there's not a lot of sustain, then definitely it's time to change. Anne writes, what's the most rewarding part of being on YouTube? Well, especially with 300,000 of you subscribing to my channel, the most rewarding thing is that I'm super nerdy about all these esoteric instruments and music theory topics, and essentially I have this megaphone that I can put out a video, and there are a lot of people out there who I know are going to listen and be interested in comment, and that's kind of a really cool thing, and I'm very grateful for all of you. Okay, Warcher asks, who's your favorite mainstream band or artist right now? Any others not so well known? Actually, in terms of like mainstream bands, I really love to listen to Muse and even Mumford & Sons, especially their older albums, when I'm running or just, driving in the car. Oh no, the dreaded 432 hertz question. Mr. G, I'm going to call you. What do you think about different tunings, like 432 hertz? I have to say that the 432 hertz thing is the flat earth conspiracy version of music theory. When you go back before, certainly the 19th century, but maybe even in the 19th century, pitch was relative. Depending on where and when you were, whatever they're calling A might be as much as a minor third low. And in fact, that's something that people who play early music like I do have to really know. So if I get hired to play a French Baroque program, their A was 392 hertz generally. And so I tuned all my instruments down a whole step to play that music. Whereas if you play, the Monteverdi Vespers, in Monteverdi's time in Italy, apparently the A could have been a half step high at 466, I think it is, hertz. So there's nothing special about 432 hertz, I have to say. Pitch can go up and down, and it just depends on where and when you were. This is a good one. Simon writes, do you ever miss your metal shredding from back in the day? Yes, I do, Simon. What I really miss about it, actually, I think maybe even more than the act of playing the music, was the fact that the energy in the room when you gave a concert. I mean, you work really hard when you rehearse and writing songs and perfecting everything. But then when you get out, to the actual concert venue, and you get on stage, and there's this audience who is so amped up, and there's a mosh pit and everyone's cheering, and like it's so much fun that that doesn't happen at a classical concert, So I kind of miss I miss how informal it was, and sometimes I think with all the formality of how we perform in classical concerts, I feel like it's a bit stiff sometimes, and I kind of wish people would be a bit more laid back. Intel Void writes, what's your favorite easy piece? Lagrima, meaning teardrop or tears, by Francisco Tárrega. It's this piece that I'll never forget. It's just, burned into my musical memory. And every time I play it, I find it emotionally, moving. And I don't think it's very difficult, but that really doesn't have anything to do with, its beauty. It's this perfect little gem of a piece. This is a hard one. Zeus Infinity writes, what would you say were the 3 revolutionary points when it came to learning guitar, or your 3 revolutionary points? I think that the first thing I learned, which really unlocked some musicality, was how to sing, actually. I don't think I'm a very good singer, but I can sing. And I have to say that studying singing and listening to a lot of singers and falling in love with opera and just listening to how expressive the human voice is, and then trying to imitate that on the guitar. I think the human voice is the ideal, kind of the platonic ideal of all musicality. And so whether you play the clarinet, the harpsichord, or the lute or the guitar, that's our model for expressivity. And so learning to sing kind of taught me how to then sing through the guitar. That's one. 2 would be to stop listening for the attack, the actual pluck, and listen to the in-between sounds, the sustain, which is a bit counterintuitive because the guitar sounds like pluck, pluck, pluck. It's a quick attack and then a sharp decay. But actually, if you think of the plucks like a consonant and then the sustain like the vowel, when we speak or sing especially, da, the vowel is the thing that lasts the longest. And so you want to get through the consonant, the pluck, and to the vowel, and that's what you're listening for. That's the beautiful sound you're creating. So start listening for the in-betweens. That's really important. And then the last thing would probably be the fact that technique serves music and not the other way around. So we have our ideal of how music should sound and how each piece should sound, and then the technique is just the sort of means to an end. You don't the technique by itself isn't the music, right? So regardless of where you play guitar or bass or whatever, the technique's not really that important. It's just something you need to get through to make the right sounds. And that's why for the rest of my life I'll have to practice, because I'll forever have to be upping my technical game to match my musical goals. There are just so many good questions here. I feel like I could sit here all night just answering these, but I think I'm pushing the limit on the lengthy video now. So I think I'll do a part 2 where I answer more of your questions, because these are so good. Well, until then, thank you all so much for helping me get to 300,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And actually, if you like this video, I think that helps a lot generate interest on YouTube here. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you soon.